Welcome to the Pastors and Money podcast. I'm Suzanne Hunt, pastor and financial coach, bringing you conversations about personal finance, church finance, and how we disciple our churches in the areas of finance and stewardship. You can find the episode show notes and more at pastorsandmoney.com. And here's the show. Today we're diving into a topic that's close to my heart but often goes unaddressed: the financial challenges facing our pastors and our church staff. You know, the statistics are pretty sobering. Many pastors are crushed under the weight of student loans. A significant number are nearing retirement age with little to nothing saved. And lots of pastors have kids getting ready for college, but no savings to pay for it. A 2022 study found that 57% of pastors can't even pay their bills. These aren't just numbers. These are real struggles affecting the very people who pour their lives into serving our churches and communities. As we're in the middle of Pastor Appreciation Month, I want to challenge us to think beyond the usual gift card or appreciation dinner and talk about how we can provide meaningful long-term support to our church leaders. And so this episode is really for, yes, lead pastors who have a staff under them, but also if you are in the church leadership, be thinking about how maybe there's something in this episode that you can use to help support your team. Maybe it'll give you some creative ideas. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but we can't afford to give our staff a raise right now. Don't worry, I hear you. The good news is there are many ways that we can support our church leaders financially without necessarily increasing their salaries. So even though I know you want to be able to increase their salaries and we're going to get your churches to a healthy place where you can do that, there are some practical ideas here, things that you can do now, today. And there's a lot of ideas in this episode. So don't feel like you need to do all of them and don't feel like you need to do it all now. Right now, just be thinking and brainstorming, right? What's something we can do this time and maybe something we want to add next? So let's get started. Financial education and planning. So first up, let's talk about financial education. You know, a few weeks ago, I was chatting with a retiring pastor and she told me the number one thing she wished she'd been taught about was retirement planning. And that really struck a chord with me. I hear stories all the time of pastors who can't retire, but they really should. They're not in a physical health place or sometimes even a mental health place to be able to lead their church anymore, but they can't retire. And so the pastor is struggling and the church is falling apart. So one of the best things that we can do for our church staff is to help them become financially literate. There are a few ways that you can do that. You can have your team go through the Financial Peace University course. This program has been life-changing for so many people, and especially for me personally. It covers everything from budgeting to investing, and it's all based on biblical principles. And this course, you can have your pastors go through it when you're offering it at your church. They can jump on at another location or even on a Zoom class. And if you'd be interested in doing a pastors-only financial peace class with me, I'll have a link in the show notes where you can sign up and tell me that you're interested in doing that, because I'd love to get a group of pastors to be able to go through this together. Sometimes it feels like we can't be fully vulnerable working through this stuff with our congregations in the room. And so if you would like to be a part of a pastors-only financial peace class, then check out the show notes for that link and sign up at pastorsandmoney.com/pastorsonlyfpu. That's pastorsandmoney.com/pastorsonlyfpu. So another thing you can do is you can gift your members, your team members, a subscription to Ramsey Plus or to the Every Dollar Budgeting app. Financial Peace is actually part of this, so if you're going to do both, just don't pay for two things. Ramsey Plus has, in addition to the Financial Peace course, it has a whole ton of other audiobooks they can listen to and courses that they can go through, including there's a Smart Money, Smart Kids course in there. There's the Know Yourself, Know Your Money course, which has to do with our thoughts around money and how they developed even from a young age and how we can have a healthy mindset around money. And so there's tons of stuff available in Ramsey Plus, including the premium version of the Every Dollar app, or you could just gift them the Every Dollar Budgeting app, the premium version. So the app itself is free, but the premium version has a few extra features, and most importantly, it links with your bank account so that it makes it much easier and faster to track your transactions every day. And I love Every Dollar. I use it personally. I've used it since 2017. I love it because it actually walks you through the process of doing a budget if you've never done one. That can be something that you can gift to your team members that doesn't have a huge price tag on it, but could have a huge benefit in helping them financially. And you can offer financial coaching to your staff. You could bring in a coach to speak on different topics during staff meetings. This kind of ongoing education can be incredibly valuable. And since you're bringing somebody in, they can tailor it specifically to the needs that your staff has. And here's a tip. You can look within your congregation. You might have financial advisors or coaches who'd be willing to offer their services at a discounted rate or even pro bono for your church staff. And when you're hiring new staff, consider asking them to show you a budget. I know this might sound a little bit invasive, but hear me out. This isn't about being nosy. It's about making sure that the salary you're offering, plus whatever income they have from other sources or maybe their spouse's income, is actually going to cover their needs. It's a way to set them up for success from the start. If they can't pay their bills with the combination of what you're paying them and what they're getting from other sources, then there needs to be some conversations on the front end of how you'll be able to do that. Yes, we walk out in faith and we act in obedience, but God doesn't call us to do something contrary to Scripture, and Scripture tells us to take care of our own household first. Our home and our family is our very first ministry that we're responsible for. If we can see up front, hey, the math doesn't work on this, we're not saying that God isn't going to do something great. We're saying, let's look for how God's going to provide so that we don't put this new staff member in a pickle and then create a situation where either, it's unhealthy for them financially, which means it's unhealthy for their home life and for their family. It can be really stressful. And it could also cause more turnover in your church if you're not having that awareness up front and having a plan for how they're going to be able to cover their expenses. If you are looking for a financial coach to be able to talk to your staff, either to do one-on-one sessions or to come in and speak for staff meetings on different topics or do a workshop, I'd love to connect you with a coach that I can recommend. If you go to pastorsandmoney.com/coachfinder, there's a form you can fill out and I can help you get connected with a coach that can be a resource, whether it's for your team members or even just to be able to have a coach that you're connected with as a church to refer church members to. So that's pastorsandmoney.com/coachfinder. Okay, so next we have retirement and long-term financial security. This is so important, but it's often overlooked in church settings. If you can, offer a retirement plan for your staff, or even better, contribute to it on their behalf. This could be a 403B plan, which is like a 401k for nonprofit organizations. You can partner with a local financial institution or an advisor to set this up. You can also check with your denomination or any organizations that you're a part of because they may already have something available, in which case then your task becomes simple. Make sure your staff knows about any benefits available through your denomination or your organization and help your team members get connected with the right person. I would also consider providing help with estate planning or legal assistance. This could be through a resource in your church or community or by offering legal insurance as an employee benefit. Again, check in your congregation. You might have lawyers or estate planners willing to offer discounted services to their church staff. You want to make sure that everybody in your church has a will, and depending on what their situation is, they might be in a situation where they need a trust. And if that's the case, they're going to need legal advice to be able to get that set up. And so as much as you can do to encourage them to be following through on things, that's the education piece of this, but also providing the resources to connect them. Estate planners can also help them make sure that they have the right insurances in place so that if one spouse dies, for example, that they've got what they need to take care of their family. It's so, so important. So next we have health and wellness benefits. So taking care of our pastor's health is crucial. They can't pour from an empty cup, right? So if you're able to offer health insurance benefits, that can be a huge blessing and provide immense peace of mind for your staff and their families, especially if they don't have benefits through another employer or their spouse's employer. So look into group plans or partner with other churches. Look into, again, what maybe be offered through your denomination. If your denomination or your organization does not have a health plan, they might have an insurance representative that can work with you on this. But if you're able to offer health insurance, that can be a huge blessing. And consider if it makes sense to provide a flexible spending account or a health savings account. These can help with medical expenses and reduce the financial stress of healthcare costs. So that's usually going to happen in tandem with your health insurance benefits or sometimes with another benefits provider that you work with. Or what about offering a gym membership or a wellness program reimbursement? So this encourages physical health, which we know is closely tied to our mental and spiritual health. And this is where community partnerships could be really beneficial. There might be gym owners in your church or community that would be willing to offer free or discounted memberships to your church staff. The great thing about that is that that's a little bit of legwork, and it doesn't even have to cost you as the church any money, or maybe just a very little bit of money if you decide to absorb some of that cost. Think too about counseling. I know the organization that I'm part of has counseling available to pastors. They have pastoral care counseling, and they also have other resources that they can connect to. Just like you'd be taking care of your church members, make sure that your church staff has access to mental health resources. I know that working with a therapist has been a huge blessing and improvement on my own personal life, not just to get out of a crisis situation, but also as routine maintenance to stay in a healthy place as I work through the challenges of ministry and living in a lot of other people's struggles and emotions. It can help to have somebody that's completely on the outside that you can talk to. So now let's talk about housing and daily living expenses. And these are often big stressors for pastors and church staff because there's a limit on how much you can cut these things, right? So if you're not already doing so, consider providing a housing allowance if you don't have a parsonage. This can be a significant financial benefit for your pastoral staff. Even if you aren't going to add an allowance, you can designate a part of their income, part of their salary to count as housing allowance, which will save them on some taxes. And so you'll definitely want to work with your bookkeeper. That kind of thing has to make it into your board minutes, and there's a process to that. And so if you need help getting that set up, I would encourage you to check out churchfinances.org. We had Michelle R. Brown on podcast a few months back. She works with church bookkeepers and treasurers and ministers to help them with all of their church finance needs. So you can find that at churchfinances.org. And then next, implement an accountable reimbursement plan for ministry-related expenses like mileage and meals, just to make sure that your staff isn't paying out of pocket for church-related costs. Yes, a lot of these expenses are tax deductible, but that essentially means it's like they're loaning money to the church and then getting paid back when they get their tax refund. If you're able to provide an accountable reimbursement plan for those ministry-related expenses, make sure you have really clear guidelines on what is and what isn't covered. So you might also consider providing a cell phone stipend or a church-owned phone for ministry use. And you can look for nonprofit rates with cell phone providers, or a lot of times employers will just reimburse part of the plan or offer a stipend for part of the plan. And for staff with younger children, consider offering childcare assistance or reimbursement. This can be a game changer for young families in ministry. So could you partner with a local daycare or preschool for discounted rates, or even just have somebody who's available to babysit during the workday if your church staff is working on site and they have kids that need care? Another area you can support your church staff is with professional development and ministry resources. Investing in your staff's growth is actually investing in your church's future. So here are some ideas. You could invest in ministry or leadership coaching for your staff. Programs like Church Boom's coaching and the Church Boom University can provide valuable skills and insights. Church Boom's coaching cohorts are free if your church is under 100 members. And so that can be something great to check out and just make sure your team is aware of and encourage them to participate in. And Church Boom University is a subscription that includes usually a monthly coaching call. You get a book in the mail every month, and then they have a whole bunch of courses and resources on their website that are available as part of your membership. Or you could provide a book and resource allowance. This encourages ongoing learning and equips your staff with the tools they need to lead effectively, and especially for whoever's preaching to be able to help them get the best tools and resources as they're doing sermon prep. Sometimes it can feel like, oh, I need a book for this and I need a book for that. And so if you're able to provide an allowance for that, that's something that doesn't have to cost the church a lot of money, but it can have an impact on your staff. And you can partner with a local Christian bookstore for discounts. And then work-life balance and appreciation. So ministry can be all-consuming if we're not careful. We've all been there where we've let it just take over our lives, which is long-term not what God has called us to biblically, right? And so here are a couple ways you can promote healthy work-life balance that don't have to cost a lot. You can offer a staff retreat. This can be a time for rest, team building, spiritual renewal. You can work with, maybe there's a local retreat center or a camp, or somebody in your church has a facility that they can let you use to get a discounted rate. And you can make a retreat as low cost or as expensive as you need to. So get creative. Find that person in your church that's a great event planner and let them serve by putting this thing together. Make sure that you're encouraging your staff to actually take time off and set clear expectations around what that looks like. Something else you can do is create a scholarship fund for pastors' kids. And this can ease the financial burden of education, and it helps you as a church show that you value not just your staff, but their families too. You might be able to partner with local colleges and universities to do matching funds, or you can just keep it really, really simple and make it a scholarship fund. Maybe it's back to working with a coach or somebody in your church who can sit down with your PKs and walk them through the process of how do we apply for scholarships and how do we plan out our college process so that we're getting the most value out of our education, that it gets us into a job that will actually pay the bills, and being able to graduate debt-free. And if you want to know more about that, keep your eyes open or your ears open, because we'll be having a series on the podcast coming up in just a few weeks talking about how you can send your pastor's kids to school debt-free. So you want to be listening for that for sure. And lastly, let's talk about debt management. This is especially relevant to our younger pastors who might be carrying student loan debt. And a lot of them, they weren't really taught about this in high school, and then they went to their private Christian school and they got a really great degree, but they're carrying around 6 figures in student loans. You might be able to implement a student loan repayment assistance program. You could consider matching employee payments to accelerate debt payoff. But really, one of the best things you can do to help them with their student loan debt is back to where we started with the education. Get them in financial peace, get them working with a coach. And of course, if you financially as a church are in a place where you're able to help with this, yes, help with it directly. But if you're not, help with it by educating them and encouraging them to do what they need to do to get out from under the burden of student loans. Now, I know we covered a lot here, and you might be thinking, wow, this sounds expensive. But remember, these are just ideas. You don't have to implement all of them. And whatever you do implement, you don't need to do it all at once. Start with what you can manage, build from there, and just start somewhere. And I really want to emphasize this. Be creative. Look around your congregation. What resources and talents and businesses do you have represented right there in your church family? There might be ways to meet your staff's needs that you haven't even thought of yet. For example, maybe you have a mechanic who could provide discounted car maintenance for your staff, a dentist who could provide free cleanings, a financial advisor or a financial coach who could offer pro bono sessions, a contractor who could help with home repairs, a hairstylist who'd offer free haircuts. The possibilities are endless. And here's the best part. Sometimes all it costs is a little homework to identify these resources and make the connections. It's about matching needs with the abundance that might already exist in your church community. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Maybe you have a church member with a vacation home they'd be willing to let your staff use for a week, or someone with airline miles they could donate for a staff retreat, or a tutoring service that could help pastors' kids with their studies. The key is to start the conversation. Let your congregation know about the needs of your staff. This can be really hard to do, especially if you listening to this are the pastor or one of the pastors in leadership. It might be easier to have a board member listen to this episode and start getting creative, right? But let your congregation know about the needs that your staff has. They know that you need a worship leader. They know that you need a kids pastor. And if you make it known what those individuals need and how we can help, you might be surprised at how eager people are to help when they understand the need. Remember, supporting your pastors and your staff, it's not just about money. It's about leveraging all the resources God has blessed your church with to take care of those who care for us spiritually. So put on your thinking cap, look around your church family, and get creative. Remember, when we take care of our pastors and our church staff, we're not just being good employers, we are investing in the health and vitality of our church. We're enabling our leaders to focus on their calling without being weighed down by financial stress. So as we approach Pastor Appreciation Month, let's think beyond the usual gift card or appreciation dinner, and let's consider how we can provide ongoing, meaningful support to those who pour so much into our church communities. So as we get ready to finish Pastor Appreciation Month, what steps can you take this week to start implementing some of these ideas? Maybe it's bringing up retirement planning at your next board meeting, or looking into health insurance options, or even just forwarding this episode to somebody in your church leadership who's not a pastor so that they can take it and run with it and get creative on some of these ideas. Whatever it is, I encourage you to take action. Our pastors and our church staff are worth it. And the thing is, your church is worth fighting for, and they need a healthy staff. If you're the lead pastor here, you need a healthy staff. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd love for you to share it with your church board. These are the folks who often make decisions about staff benefits, and they might find some inspiration here. Remember, a financially healthy church staff leads to a healthy church overall, and that's something that we can all get behind. Until next time. Thank you for listening to today's show. I'd love to know what you think about it. You can leave a comment on the show notes at pastorsandmoney.com/podcasts, or email me at joy@pastorsandmoney.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps us to get the word out and invite more people into these conversations. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Pastors and Money. I can't wait to talk again soon.